Hi everyone, the presentation will start soon. Hi, welcome back to my presentation. I hope all of you went through my previous videos. Today we are talking about all these steps together. That means a quick walkthrough through all the sessions we had and any questions, and we can conclude what are the important points in each sessions, and it will be a quick reference for future. So what are the sessions we covered? How to listen users, how to convert UX findings to UI design, how to develop UI design, how to deploy UI design, and how to measure success of UI design. When we take the important actions or important points, listen, convert, develop, deploy, and measure. So we discussed a lot on each point in respective sessions. You can refer that sessions, take your time and go through the detailed sessions in this channel. Okay, as we discussed in every sessions, all my talks are related to innovation journeys. Innovation journey starts from empathizing idea, sketching concept, designing look and feel, rapid prototyping, evaluating MVP and market feedback. This is the typical innovation journey of any company or any activity. So UI design also we can synchronize with this innovation journey, but we can develop a innovation journey only for UI designer or UI design projects. Whatever may be the design or whatever may be UI design, it will be connecting to designing look and feel, sketching concept, and prototyping. These are the important stages of UI design, is acting with product design. So UI design is closely, or UI designer should closely work with the product designer to deliver the product. Actually the product is delivered through interface, so interface is very important in front of the user. Okay, we can talk about innovation journey of UI designer. So what are the different topics we talk about? Is a listening, design, develop, and deploy and measure. In all these stages the innovation journey is connected to. We are talking about each session at the same time. If you like, and if you have any comments, you are welcome. At the same time, you can have questions and ask your questions through the comment box. You are free to share this presentation to your colleagues and friends. Okay, coming back to our topic, we can start with how to listen users. It's one of the important steps, and this is the first step we have to start with. Listen to users. Don't start any UI design from your intuition. Even though you have some idea, present that idea in front of the user and listen what they have or what the contribution they can give to your idea. So listening to user to reach consensus of ideas, and to whom we are to listen, to targeted users. That is one of the important thing. Then different segment of users. Listen to users in all stages of designing, in different environment of users. Quick responses, stories, positive thoughts, negative thoughts, ideas, and walkthrough. I will brief each point again. Before that, one thing we had to keep in mind that we had to listen to users in all stages of UI design. Is the ideation stage or wireframing stage, mockup stage, prototyping stage, or MVP stage, or real-time UX stage. These are the different stages of UI design. Ideation is the first stage, as I already explained. You have an idea, or you have to talk to the users and get that idea for more, bring that idea to more clarity. Then convert to wireframe. That is, every UI designer knows what is wireframe. Then convert to mockups. Then prototype. Then MVP and real UX. All these stages you have to talk to users and listen what they have. Whom should UI designer listen to? So as I said, don't start with our intuition, and we have to listen to, but whom to a UI designer listen to? It's very simple question, but simple answer. For whom you are developing the product, that's all. So UI designer is developing an interface to a targeted user. No company can develop a product for the entire community. That is not possible. Some companies will say that it is good for community, but entire community won't use that. All the products are designated to a particular category or particular segment of community. So what's the demographic profile of targeted users? What is the geography, where they are staying? What is the psychographic, that is their lifestyle, attitude? What is the behavioral, that is benefits and occasions the user is getting? Usage is a usage rate, awareness, that's a medium user, heavy user, like that. This is the demography of the user where we are targeting to. So UI designer should talk to these segments to get their ideas. And what's the categories? So the very interesting thing is the R&D people or the innovation people. You can divide your users into different circles. We can say that one is internal circle and other is external circle. Internal circle is connected to the people inside your company. That may be a costing department, production department, compliance department, not from R&D, from the other department. And external circles is the non-users or users of your product, substitutional users, customers, and competitors users. So every category of user we have to define. Substitutional users means the users will be using some other methods to reach the same goal, and competitor user is the users who belongs to your competitors, and customers belongs to your own customers. So you have different circles. You can form these circles and talk to these category of people, create this group and apply these segmentations. This is the category of people you have to talk to and you have to listen to. Then what should UI designer listen? Quick responses. When you show an idea, or when you show a wireframe, when you show a mock-up, you have to take a quick response from the user. Then their stories. And they see something, they start saying stories, their experience. So I used this method in that way. So that was the reason, that was the result, like stories. And convert these stories or analyze these stories to positive thoughts or prompt them to give positive thoughts if they are not saying anything on positive side of the stories. At the same time, negative thoughts, what are the drawbacks, what are the faults in that story, so that also you can narrate it from. Then their ideas, all the users have a lot of ideas, so you have to take their ideas. And walkthroughs is the situational explanation by the user. For example, you are putting a context in front of the user, then how they will react. So if you want to take a print, so how they will do it with this software, that's called walkthrough. So you can analyze how he's reaching his goal. So these are the things we have to listen to. That is quick responses, stories, positive thoughts, negative thoughts, ideas, and walkthroughs from user. Then analyze these information in different ways. You can analyze. One of the easiest and best method is SWOT analysis. You put your UI design at the center and do the SWOT analysis. Like you have to analyze the strength of your design, opportunities of your design, threat and weakness of your design. So analyze when, why, what, where, whom. So these are connected to the user. Why the user has to use this interface, what he's going to do, who is the user, and where he is going to use, and when he is going to use. So these are the questions in front of you for analysis, and do the SWOT analysis based on these perspectives, and listen to user in all stages of your design. That is very important. Ideation stage, wireframe stage, mockup stage, prototype stage, MVP stage. MVP means minimum viable product. Then the next version, that's real UX stage. So all the stages you have to listen to users. So whom to listen, so specific segments or targeted segments, what to listen. I already explained what are the different things we had to listen and why we had to listen, then analyze. Then comes to the next session or next part of your journey, convert UX findings to UI design, because you already have a lot of findings from users. How to convert these findings to UI design? This also you can refer my previous presentation. This is an exclusive session only for this. The main points are define personas. So you have all the information from the public or from the community, then you have to define personas, analyze UX based on personas, develop design blueprint based on personas, document it. So here the important aspect is design the personas. So what is persona? Persona is a profile of the user. You already taken information from different segment of the users, from these segments, and you got a lot of informations. Based on that information, you had to define personas, how it can be executed. So define the person, what is the age, where the person is located, or what the attitude of that person, why the person is using this interface, what type of user is. So you can take different variables. These are the main variables I put into. You can define these type of variables. Then this person is in this combination, that is 25 to 35. This is 30 to 35, 35 to 40, then 25 to 30, 20 to 25, 40 to 45. Different age wise, different location. You can say Singapore, Delhi, Singapore, okay. Innovator, early adopter, early majority, innovator. Okay, these are the different attitudes. Then value for money, status. So these parameters you can define, but you have to clearly define different personas according to the information initially you got from the market. Then these personas plays a very important role in your design. So when we talk to the segments, you will get the personas, and when you design also, you have to keep these personas, how it will be. So The next step is develop blueprint of your design. And these blueprints to be developed for each persona. What is blueprint? You can see you can see a model here. That's what we call design blueprint. You can see a line of user interaction, line of user visibility, line of internal interaction. What it is? So line of user interactions. Above this stage, user can see the interface and user can interact with the interface. That is called line of user interaction. The user visibility. There are some areas you can see, but they can't interact. That's also included here. That's called line of user visibility. Whatever you are talking about above than this is called line of user visibility. Then line of internal interaction. There are a lot of back-end process is happening. So that is included here. That is a programmer's job, but the user can't see what is happening inside that. For example, when a user going to log in, he click logging in, then what the process happening behind that user can't see. Then immediately after that, the soft interface will say that user you are successfully logged in, or you are not logged in. So what that is called line of internal interaction. Then support process. There are a lot of support process behind it. That's called support process. Maybe in an automobile context, engine can be taken as backend. User is giving instructions to engine by clutch, brakes, and accelerator. This interface is using for the control the entire system, but the backend you can take it as engine. Then support process. What is the process you are defined when you use give an instruction? Okay, then we can explain these stages like visual evidence, user actions, front end, back end, support process. So think about what user is seeing. Line of user visibility. Above that user can see the front end. That is the screens or the messages user can see. Then on that interface or on that message, user take actions, they accepting the message or rejecting the message or giving instructions according to the screen. So user actions is performed. Then the actions should give and response, that is visual evidence. So what user is seeing, user is reading a lot of things, user is reading and seeing. Then only after reading or seeing or getting an information from the system, user is taking actions on front end. So these are the three main stages UI designer has to work to. That's why I always put this in front of the UI designer, because line of user visibility, what user is seeing, what user is acting, and what the visual evidence we are giving to the user. This is the area UI designer has to work. The backend and support process always a programmer's job or engineer's job to do. Look into these three aspects and define these three aspects based on persona. So we already defined persona, because the actions you are designing to a youngster is different than senior citizen. So that's why the persona is, so your product is defined to senior citizen as well as youngster. For example, a banking app, that is more or less common app nowadays. So the banking app should be used by a person in the younger age, at the same time the senior citizen. So whether are we giving different interface for this category of people or same interface? Most of the products are giving same interface, but look from the user's perspective, is it correct? Because some of the actions you designed may not be useful for the senior citizens because they are not comfortable with that type of action. Some colors, some shapes, some actions, they are not comfortable. So can you change the front end according to the profile of the person? That gives the exact or more close experience according to the expectation of the user. That is the important area UI designer has to. Otherwise, a programmer can do the UI design. Why should a UI designer has to do? A front-end programmer can do that. There is no need for UI designer if we are not looking to the user and doing the design based on the personas and their expectations. Otherwise, there is no role for UI designer. Okay. Then come to next step is develop. How to develop UI design? So you already collected a lot of information, listen to users, have information, and start designing and converting all the information to your working context. Then how to develop UI design? That's the next step. Main points are developing wireframe, that is shape, size based on persona. Do inclusive design, that care permanent, temporary, and situational disabilities. Then follow 10 usability heuristics for UI design. Then in mockups, use colors based on personas, follow semiotics and use universal signs. Then in the design, in the interface side, you use designing tools and design for each persona. Here also persona comes in. However, we had to use a lot of technology or the platforms here for the designing. And in this session also, you have a detailed step-by-step explanation in my previous presentation only for this topic. Here, I'm briefing every point. So shapes and size. After defining targeted users and convert the information to design, you start wireframing. Wireframing mainly talk about shapes and size. What is the shape of the interface? What is the size of the interface? So these shapes and size, you can start from any simple software tools or paper and pen. That also a good platform to start with, because most of the designers have some artistic skills, so they are very comfortable with paper and pen. So you can start wireframe with paper and pen or start with any drawing softwares. You can do it in Canva, you can do it in Figma or any even AutoCAD also will work. So wireframe can be done in any software. But the shapes and size you are talking about should be connected to or should be in consensus with the user, the targeted users. Then the next step we had to keep in mind, or next point we had to keep in mind, is inclusive design. While selecting shape and size, you already keep in mind about the personas, but these situations or these aspects from the society also to be keep in mind. Inclusive design, most of the companies will be talk about how a disabled person can use their product. There's a permanent disabilities, temporary disabilities, and situations. So you can see a person is having one arm is a permanent disability for touch, injury can be a temporary, and new parent, the one hand is occupied with the kid. So that is a situation disability. So these disabilities can be happening in the touch, hear, see, speak. These are the main channels a user is interacting with. Can touch your interface, see your interface, hear about your interface, and speak. So these are the main channels a user is interacting with the interface. So the user may be categorized as permanent, temporary, and situation disabilities. So these type of users also to be included while you design. or you develop the designs while doing the wireframes, whether a person is having one hand can operate your interface. Okay, coming in detail to these context. So look into these situations. Everybody have a lady after shopping, a mom with an infant, and a driver. So you are disabled. There is important thing we have to think of. Keep in mind, your user is disabled. In our research, the community research already released by different agencies and different social organizations saying that around 78% of the day user is disabled. That is situational disability. That's the important part you have to take care. Maybe you may think that my software is not for permanent disabled person. I have different software for that. That's okay. But look into this fact. 78% of a day you are disabled. Otherwise, think about your own life. Are you disabled? In how much time you are disabled in a day? You may be driving, you may be parenting, or think about shopping. Think about how this lady can book a Uber after shopping. She's disabled. How she's talking, she's disabled. Okay, so this is the way we have to include the situational disability to our design. Always keep in mind that 78% of the day you are disabled. So this is one of the important factors you are considering while designing, especially in wireframing stage itself. Otherwise, people can't use your product. For example, in the case of login, you give different options to login. Otherwise, how a mom can log in a critical situation? Whether the shopping is possible or while driving, whether he can interact with your interface. I'm not only the phone is not only the one interface I'm talking about. Think about the interface of the in the dashboard. So whether this user can easily interact with that dashboard while driving, because he can't look into the dashboard. They have his seeing ability or the duration of seeing is limited because he's driving. So whether he can interact with the dashboard without looking into more time, or without spending more time on the dashboard, just by a glance, whether he can interact without seeing the dashboard. Maybe his one hand he can operate, but he can't see that. So that is called situational disability. That part you have to include. If you are an automobile manufacturer, think about your dashboard instructions. Can a user interact with the dashboard and complete that process within 3 seconds? If the process takes more than 3 seconds, for example, you want to adjust uh, volume or volume of air, volume of your music system or air conditioner. Think about you want to change the music. Can a user do it in 3 seconds? If it takes more than 3 seconds, he is distracted from driving. Better he has to stop the car and do it. But people won't do that. So this is called situational disabilities. So you have to keep an eye and take it more serious than the present one. If you start from intuition, just do a UI design, just do an app or interface, these things won't be considered. And these things can be considered only if you talk to users. Then the Bible of, or you can say that 10 commandments of UI design, designing rules. this important thing, what it is. The 10 usability heuristics. Hats off to the great visionary who introduced these rules, and these rules are available through Niels and Norman group now. Okay, I will explain these rules. We have a separate session only to explain these rules in UI design. So you can go through our presentation on 10 usability heuristics. What are the rules? Visibility of system status. User has to get a system status, and you had to, as a UI designer, you give the visibility. What is happening in the system? Is it running, or is it hanging, or some progress bar, or this type of visibility you have to give? Then match between the system and real world. Whatever you are talking to the user, it should be almost similar or as equal as the real world. Maybe cultural issues and geographical issues comes in, but so your messages and interactions should be synchronized with the real world. User control and freedom. User have the freedom to do anything, so let them do anything on your interface. Then consistency and standards. You have to keep the consistency, because whenever you show the red color, it should be some danger or stop. So that type of consistency you have to keep in entire design. Then error prevention. So you have to do the error prevention before the user commit an error. For example, in the password, you have to reconfirm the password by typing it again. These type of error prevention steps you can. Recognition rather than recall. Don't test the user's memory. So whatever user is having, you have to put it on that screen. So don't say that we already set it in 3 screens back or yesterday. In this presentation also, you may think that so many times I am repeating some words. That's based on these rules, because as a spectator, as a user, they can't remember everything. So it's better to bring to the notice of the user every time they require it. That is called recognition rather than recall. Don't test the memory of the user. The user have a lot of other works to do. You operating or testing the memory, or he is not undergoing an exam, university exam with your interface. Okay. So that's the way you had to develop the UI design. So in some apps, I noticed that, okay, when you reach to a particular stage, you could not understand what it is, because maybe as a user, I already done it 3 or 4 stages back, but how I can remember it? So you have to give the progress, or you have to give the exact information what it is. Then flexibility and efficiency of use. So you have to give different options for the same thing. That is called flexibility and efficiency of use. Then aesthetic and minimalistic design. That is very important. You have to give the minimum thing in your screen. Don't give all the things put to the screen, and don't instruct or don't expect a user to play hide and seek. So they have to find where the control is. So they want to do something, they are just doing the hide and seek game in your interface and find the controls. Don't do that. It should be a very minimalistic design, clean and minimalistic design. Help users to recognize, diagnose, and recover from other. Anyway, user will make mistakes. So if there is a mistake is happened, help them how to recover from that mistake, and what are the things to be done, how to go back or undo, or all those things you have to help. And documentation, every stage you have to help the user. So these are the 10 important rules, the 10 commandments we have to follow in design rules. Every stage of your design, or every stage of delivery, at least in the delivery points, When you deliver ideation, when you deliver wireframe, when you deliver mockups, when you deliver prototype, at every stage of delivery, you have to audit with these 10 rules. That is one of the important steps UI designer has to follow. Okay, therefore our presentation on only for these rules and how these rules are applied and how to interact or how to use these rules in day-to-day UI design practice. Then in the develop stage, do design for each persona. That I already said. We already defined the personas and also design for each personas. As I said, each persona, the need for each persona may be different. So design, or you develop the variant of designs for each persona. Maybe colors are different, maybe the messages are different, maybe the options are different. So define all those things according to the persona. Maybe you can combine some persona, because some personas can use the same interface. That's also okay. That's why I put it as in two category. Actually, if you have 6 personas in this illustration, we are developing 2 interfaces, because these 4 personas will go to this interface and these 2 personas will go to in this interface, because 2 interface is enough. So that means we are combining. We, according to your management or according to the product manager, or discuss with the team, and you can finalize these type of steps. But keep in mind that that persona should use this interface. So after, for example, in this illustration, you can take in such a way that these 2 category of people, personas, it's very difficult to use this interface. That's why we have to develop another interface. So keep in mind that visual evidence, user actions, and front end, these things are different, but back end is same. It's something like you are using same engine in different models of automobile. Only the front end is different, back end is same, because that user needs a different purpose, or the user needs a different way of action. That's why you are defining it in a different interface, but the system, that backend is same. So this is the way you are to keep in mind, and the UI designer has to define these interfaces according to personas. So as according to this point, what are the stages we completed? Listen to users, define the personas, and convert that information you after listening according to the personas, then start developing wireframes or mockups. So then the development stage, you are considering this persona. Okay, then comes to how to deploy UI design. So after listening, you come across all these points. Now how to deploy UI design, to whom you are deploying, that's the first step. So in each stage you have to deploy. That is, ideation stage you have to deploy, wireframe you have to deploy, mockup you have to deploy, prototype you have to deploy, MVP. Don't think that I started UI design and say that after this 1 month or 2 months, okay, I completed the UI design. This is my UI design, and you can follow. That's not the right practice. You have to deploy in each stages. In the ideation, finalizing ideation about your interface, you have to deploy it. To whom you have to deploy? The first step is you are interacting with the user and listening about your ideation. Then you have to deploy it to the development team or project owner or product owner. That's a people who is working behind that product. So you have to deploy the ideation about the interface, because you are doing only the interface part. The product owner has a lot of other things to do, the technical side, lot of other aspects, technical side, legal side, finances, a lot of things they have to think about. That's a complete journey of, it's based on the product. But as a UI designer, we are limiting the session only to the UI designer. That's why I'm not going to the product design side. So as a UI designer, you are delivering only the UI design side, interface side. not the backend side, or not the um, what we call the documentation side, or a lot of other aspects for the product. So you're not into that. So we are designing only the UI design, but in UI design, the ideation about the UI design, you have to deploy wireframe, you have to deploy mockup, you have to deploy prototype, you have to deploy MVP. So each stage you have to deploy. So you have to arrange your work and divide your work according to these milestones and deploy. For example, you are developing an app, you have an ideation about the interface, you talk to users and you finalize the idea. This is to be the interface for the app. About the idea, this is the concept behind it. You have to talk to the product team and finalize, then go for wireframing, and after wireframing again. So that's it. So I will explain it in detail. So what method we have to do in ideation? So do the team meetings and convey idea. Better to use real object for clarity, talk to users and explore and validate ideas. So this is the stage we have to do. That is, you can use any three-dimensional real objects for while presenting your ideas, because human mind always associated with three-dimensional objects. So it's better you have to show the three-dimensional object to represent your ideas and explain your ideas. Okay, if your team is more dynamic and highly creative, then you can use Lego bricks for conveying the idea. If you want to learn it more, you can look into Lego Serious Play. They have a very important gaming method for the management and ideation and innovation. So that's called Lego Serious Play. So you can use that, or that is available in digital form also nowadays. So you can use a physical form or digital form, but physical form is more interesting. People will explore and people will react to your ideas spontaneously, and they have a lot of ideas to contribute. So they use this type of three-dimensional object while you're talking to users as well as talking to your team about your ideas. So team meetings is the method for the delivery while the stage of ideation. Then wireframe. Use pen and paper or any drawing tools to develop, then talk to users. Develop the wireframe, then talk to users. Don't go to other stages. From the ideation, you convert to wireframe, then talk to users, then finalize your wireframe, then deliver to project owner. So in this stage, you have to look into the inclusive design, you have to look into the rules, 10 heuristics, then shapes. Okay, so everything you have to look into, then test with the users, present it in front of the users, then confirm it, deliver to product development team. Mockups. After wireframing, you are moving to mockups. Here also same process. UI design softwares as to use. There are a lot of softwares available. The prominent ones are Figma, UiSad, Adobe XD, or Canva. These are the softwares you can easily use for wireframing and mockups. So mockups mainly talk about colors. You can use semiotics, or different shapes for finalizing the colors. Okay, universal colors are important. Then it comes to deploy, prototyping. In deployment, prototyping stage. So how to deploy the prototype? So use prototyping software to develop, then talk. So there are another set of softwares available. The prominent one is Protopy. It's a very interesting software. You can develop the entire prototype in Protopy. So there's a difference between the softwares I already explained. These are wireframing and mockup softwares that is working like a presentation. Here, this software work like a real activity. For example, you can use camera, you can use front end camera, back end camera, or these type of all the activities in a prototype you can design, especially for the mobile apps. You can define in prototype. That's why this software is a little bit different from the software what I explained. So use this to deliver and develop the prototype. Develop the prototype as well as delivering. Here also you have to talk to users. You can give this prototype to users. They can play with the prototype, then give their feedback. That's the way you have to move forward at this stage. Then you have to manage versions. In the deployment, one of the important things is manage versions and synchronize design with the real product. That's one of the mistakes all the UI designers will do that come across in my experience. UI designer will develop some design and say that my design is complete. Then only after that the product development starts. So product developer says that this is not possible. These things are a lot of limitations. So I will design in this way. So they will just go through the UI design and they do it in their own way. Later, what is happening? There is no relationship with your design and the product. Look into your design team. Look into your product development team. This is happening. The design is already completed maybe in the 3 months back. We are not referring to the design. The design is still in that shelf and the product is developing in a different way. So they say that, okay, I already changed that because of these reasons. So product developer or the programmer have his own reasons to change that. Then if you are not synchronizing these two, what is the purpose of doing the UI design? What is the result of doing all this effort in the UI design? UI design already done that. Then the entire UI design stands in the ideation stage. That's what I can conclude. That is just an idea presentation or explanation of your ideas. That's all. But it's not an interface design. So what you have to do is, as a UI designer, talk to team and work with the team of the product development and synchronize your design or update your versions. So when the product development is going on, there are a lot of problems you are going to face, like technical problems or other problems, marketing, lot of things you are going to face. But when these problems is faced by the product development team, the UI designer has to interact and upgrade your design to that level, and it should match with the product. That's one of the important thing UI designer has to follow. Don't think that you are a separate team from the product development. No, your interface is also the important part of the product. So you have to work with the team and keep the synchronized version with the product. So interact with the team. So you can give your comments and you can give your version based on the user's perspective. The developer is looking to the technical perspectives or company's perspective, but only the UI designer can argue with the user's perspective. That is important. So your duty is to argue with the user's perspective. They have the technology perspective or financial perspectives, lot of other things. But whether your user, your targeted user will accept it or not, that is only you know. UI designer know. And keep the version synchronized with the design. Otherwise, there is no use for UI designer. Developer will do. So just giving the idea, no. Actually, your idea, UI designer's ideas is not an important thing. We are looking for, as a company, we are looking to users' ideas, not UI designer's ideas. So user idea is important. Then UI designer is taking the consensus and they are putting into a interface and they are designing the interface based on users' ideas. Then user ideas should synchronize with the product. Otherwise, what is the use of the entire exercise? If your team is not working like that, today itself you have to change it. Otherwise, there is no use for UI design. They are doing something, they are designing something, they come with a lot of different colors and So don't do that. See, every stage of product development, UI designer has to interact and synchronize with the design. That's designed to be corrected with the end users, targeted users, and this is the cyclic process goes on. Then the real-time UX. I already explained that in the next version. So next time, when you update the product, or the continuous development of interface is a must. Either you have the stage-by-stage innovation strategy or continuous innovation strategy. Use UI designer has to work on the real UX. Real UX means always after delivering the first version of the product. When you deliver the first version of the product, you can see how the people are working on, how people are using it, and you can take the real UX. Being up to that stage, you are talking about prototype or ideation or mockups. You are inviting the users to visualize. This is going to happen. What is your idea? This is going to happen. So you always say users have limitations on that, but in the real UX, you are working on the real products. Then, of course, you have to measure the success of UI. That is very important because you already done a lot of work, UI designs, but you have to measure the success of UI design. How to measure? Measure from the targeted market, measure innovation adoption, measure usage sales growth, start next versions at the right time. These are the important points in the measurement. So first thing is go to targeted market and measure the attitude of the users. So when you release the product, after release, go to targeted market, measure the attitude of users. You already know who are the users. You already know your targeted users, and actually, if there is any difference from the targeted users to the present users, that also you know from the market. Then what are the things you are measuring? So actually, you are measuring against the innovation adoption curve. It talk about innovators, early adopters, early majority, late majority, and laggards. This is the standard adoption curve. These are one of the important models in marketing, and defining the cross section of the society. So analyze based on whether your product is with innovators hand, early adopters hand, early majority. So I have a detailed presentation on this topic as a separate session. Please go through that, because I have clearly mentioned how to identify all those things, or who is this. Otherwise, this presentation will take too much time. That's why I'm just saying that which category of the people that uh, society belongs to, or your users belongs to. Then at the same time, you have to measure the product life cycle, measure the growth, the introduction stage, growth stage, and maturity stage, decline stage. So you have to identify what is a decline stage. So measure the growth. If the growth is negative, a product is in decline stage. This is the way you have to analyze from the market, measure from the market. Then compare adoption curve and product life cycle. Find the percentage of targeted users who is using the product, so with whom the product is now. So you just introduce the product and it is lying with the late majority, or your product is lying with the early majority. This is the way you have to analyze to whom the product belongs to. Then if the product belongs to late majority, you have to introduce new versions. That means whenever you cross the early adopter stage, the chance of when you cross this chance of, you have to start the next version. And the early majority stage you can develop, and late majority stage you have to introduce the next version. But whenever the product is in the decline stage, and whenever the product is in the late majority stage, this is the right time to deliver the next version. Otherwise, you will be out from the market. So whenever you see negative growth, actually the negative growth is acceptable only in late majority. But if your product is in danger, or it's a failed product, you can see the negative growth in the introduction stage itself. So whenever you see negative growth, you have to invest, start next version. And extension of product, we have extension strategies, new product strategies, and we have basketing strategy, a lot of strategy you can introduce here. That is a product development and marketing strategies. I'm not discussing that strategies here, but whenever you see negative growth, you have to start next version. So actually you have to continue with the next version when you introduce the first version. Immediately when you reach the prototyping or the beta testing stage of the first version, you develop the second version. You start developing the second version, so it will be more safer side. When your product is in late majority or product is in the decline stage, so you can deliver next versions. So these are the main stages, that is listening, converting UX findings, how to developing UX, deployment, and measure. I hope I covered almost all the points in brief, but I always insist you to go to the detailed sessions to get and clarity, because some of the visitors are new to my presentation, so they may have a lot of doubts or a lot of points they are not clear. I know that. So because think about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is, we already spent around 4 hours in total for this section. Now again 1 hour to briefing, so you will be having detailed sessions. Go through that. At the same time, keep in mind that UX based UI design, that is the important thing. That's only one thing I have to convey on top of whatever we discuss. Don't do the UI design with your intuition or with your own ideas. Today morning I find a design. Okay, some people start with that, but immediately you have to talk to users whether this is workable, whether this is okay to the user, targeted users. Even though you start with the intuition, immediately you have to talk to your targeted users before starting the designing or even starting the wireframing. So UX based UI design, actually you can't generate any experience inside user's mind. The experience is the private experience or private thinking process the user is having. You can't do anything on that. You can give lot of environment to create an experience, but what experience the user is having is up to the user. We have to collect that experience from the user's mind by interacting with users. Then based on that information, you have to design your UI. That is the meaning of UX UI design. Otherwise, some stages, some companies are thinking you are designing experience. Actually, you are designing the environment. That's why experience is different. So you may be giving a good music environment, but the user is not interested in music. They don't have any good experience. You can give the music experience only to music lovers, but what experience you are giving to a person who is not following the music, not interested in music, and what experience you are going to create? That's a negative experience. So you can't design, you can't create that type of, only to your customers you can create experience, but not to the entire users or entire community. You can't create the experience. Your customers are interested in your product, so you can generate or design different experience to them, because you already loving your product. That's the reason. But think about the entire community. Think about the competitor users. Think about the substitution users. Think about the non-users. These are the important segment in a society you have to target to. So, what is the percentage of your customers in the entire society? Even Google, when you talk to Google, there's just 80% maximum. How many people using Google? 80% of the community. So think about your product. What is the percentage of users in the community who is using your product? Maybe 1%, maybe less than 1% or 2%. Maybe big companies can claim big percentage, but think about the entire community. Still, it's a maximum thing, say 80% for the Google. So this is going to happen. So you have to target your competitor user. You have to target your substitution users. You have to target your non-users. Then only your market will grow. So your interface should target that areas also. They have to find a utility in your interface, then only they will come to your product. So that's the way you have to do. Don't limit your design only to your customers. So user-based UI design is important. So every stage of the stages I already explained. So put your user at the center, then do the SWOT analysis, do the analysis about the person, and every stage you have to talk to and you have to do this analysis. This is one of the important. Don't do intuition-based UI design. Do user-centric UI design. Okay, I hope last 1 hour you come across almost all the points in the UI design. But again, it's a brief. I invite all of you to go through each presentation and get a clarity. At the same time, I expect your comments and shares and questions. You can ask any questions to me connected to this in the listening stage or design stage, development stage, deployment stage, or measuring stage, or you can add your questions in the comment box. Or again, if you want to talk to me, you can scan this QR code and fix an appointment. I'm happy to discuss with you any stages of UX based UI design. Share these to your colleagues. Thank you. Thank you for your time. Okay, thank you, Priya. I hope this session is fruitful to you, but still, I feel that this is around 1 hour long. Maybe I'm briefing everything together. That's the reason it's take 1 hour long. We have any questions we can discuss. Otherwise, we can wind up. Okay. Thank you so much.